Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Eric. You're watching my channel. Do you like RC cars? I like RC cars. Hey everybody, what's going on? Yep, today's a new toy day. Hope everyone had a great 4th of July weekend. And here I am talking about the DR10, which is a 110 scale, ready to run two-wheel drive electric drag racing car. Yes, this is the orange model of it. I end up getting the green. I like the green better than the orange. I don't know. Anyways, talk a little bit about what comes in the box of this thing. Now the car is ready to use up to a point. Okay, there are some things you're going to have to set up if certain things don't look correct, or say that the tires look like they're inward a little bit or on an angle a little bit. You're going to have to fix that, otherwise you're going to be going through tires every time you run this car on the street at full speed. So let's go over some of the stuff that comes with the car itself. So the car already has installed, which the bearings are not in here, the bearings are on the old wheels. These are bigger wheels for the wheelie bar. So if you don't want the car to really come upwards and you want to keep it close to the ground, you'd put the bigger wheelie bar wheels on there and pop the bearings out of the old ones and put the bearings inside the new ones. So they have bigger ones. Your servo for your front steering, it comes with an extra, I can't remember what I believe this is like a stopper to where it turns so far and can't turn anymore. A couple of pins for your body in case you break one, which are kind of nice. And the big ones here are these guys, which these are used for your ride height and adjusting your shocks. Now I thought that the other car that I had these on them already, but I guess it didn't. But this one here, if you want to, say, lower your stance a little bit, or if you have a heavy battery inside your car, you want the car to kind of stick to the ground, not bounce around too much, you would add or remove these little rings that are on the top of the shock towers. Now what it is basically is you slide the spring down. There is a cap around the spring itself, and you slide into this in between that cap and the top of the shock tower itself. And there's different sizes of these. I already have mine set up for the battery that I'm using. I got kind of the wrong size battery. I was looking more at the numbers of the battery than rather the size and specs of the battery as far as size and shape goes. Yeah, so I ended up picking up a little bit too heavy of a battery, but I ended up adjusting that with the shocks so the car, the stance of the car and everything else is not going to drop down. You have a all-in-one nut wrench, okay, and then you have another wrench which is good for setting up your shocks, and then you have upper and lower ball joints on this thing to where you can set up camber on your wheels, and you can also adjust your tie rods and everything else, and this comes in really handy for doing that. Then you have a couple of Allen keys, because there's a lot of Allen screws on this thing. I mean, a lot of them. And this here is basically for your if you want to lock your controller, say if you have more than one of these cars, and you get an interference between somebody operating their car and your car, you are able to lock your controller into the system with this. Don't know how actually it works, but somehow it links up with, once you plug this in, there's a little green light that blinks on the on-off, and you're able to lock in your controller so you don't get any interference with somebody else's controller or somebody else's car. So that's just a little bit of what comes inside the box as far as extra parts go. Let's go over some of the stuff that, the bigger stuff that came in the box. All right, so your controller, you need one. Can't run the car without it. Well, you probably could. It'll probably just take off and run until the battery dies if you didn't have one, but I'm sure you could rig it up that way. But anyways, standard controller, and this actually feels like an actual controller. It's got the weight to it, doesn't feel light as a feather, and it's got a little bit of weight to it, not like it's a 10-pound weight, but it's actually not bad at all. On top over here are basic your fine tuning. All right, so on the bottom over here, you have your steering, and again, if your steering is a little bit off or something, you can adjust it to where if you're going straight, you can adjust it to go straight. And then you have another for like a drive where you turn the wheel and it reacts a certain way. So if you have this full blast, you could turn the wheel and it'll turn full turn. If you lower this adjustment, it'll start to do like a half a turn. The wheels don't turn in the direction all the way as fast as you're turning this. I have it set full blast, so if I want to go on a slight turn, I just turn it a little bit. If I want to go on a full turn, I'll just turn it all the way. And then the top part is basically for your driving your motor. And what's going on over here is this one here is a setting to where it how would I call it? What would you call it? If you turn this down and you give it full throttle, it doesn't really go very fast, okay? And as you start turning this up, you get up to a certain point and the car will start moving by itself. So what I end up doing is I'll end up turning this down to where it just starts to kind of like move itself a little bit and then back it off just a hair. That way when you pull the trigger, the car reacts and goes. This one here is basically like a speed. You have a minimum and a maximum. So when you pull the trigger and you have this set down to the minimum, it doesn't go very fast until you get used to the car and stuff. Then you can gradually increase your speed all the way up to max. Max is basically, yeah, again, pull the trigger and it goes. Not bad. They kind of decorate the wheel for steering with a like a rim with a brake caliper and rotor in there. Funny. But yeah, it takes 4 instead of 3. It just takes 4 AA batteries. And again, it feels like a normal controller, not some toy controller. So let's get to the car, I guess. How's that sound? All right, so this is the vehicle itself. Yeah, I went with the green. I like the green better than the orange. You have 2 different colors. You either had a choice of an orange or a choice of the green. I like the Inferno orange, but just not in this car. I like the green better. So what I ended up doing, again, you have the clips that go on the body. I pop those off. And this is basically the body, all right? You could put the pinstriping on yourself. There are other decals that this comes with. Now, the decals are basically peel and stick, but you have to cut them out yourself. So you have to be very careful how you cut them out because there are no lines to follow other than the lines of the decal itself, and you don't want to mess that up. Inside, basic kind of silver, pearl silver looking kind of a nice look. And yeah, so these are already painted, all right, out of the box. There is a removable wing, so if you don't like it, you want to take it off. I kind of like it. I'm going to leave it on. And then the front end is bolted on itself too. So this is not one of those cars where everything is molded in. Yeah, there are some parts that are assembled on it, but it comes pre-assembled. So let's get into what makes this thing a car. All right, so now you're looking at the chassis part of this, and I have to say for a $400, $300, or whatever remote control car, this thing is built very well. I mean, it is pretty tight. There's no twisting in the chassis at all. There's no problems with like parts maybe going to split, crack, or break. It is pretty damn. It's pretty damn nice. The only thing I ended up doing is I bought the wrong battery for this. I kind of screwed up. I was looking at more of the size of the battery as far as the voltage and everything. I wasn't looking at the actual size of the battery. So a normal battery for this car would be probably like half the thickness of what this one is, and this has some weight to it. So if I go ahead and put this on the car, it's going to weigh down. The springs are tightened in the back of the car. I added more of those clips into the shocks, and I added a couple of them into the front suspension too, because I knew as soon as I put the battery on, this thing was going to drop a little bit, and sure as shit it did. So my stance with the new battery, with this battery, is where I want it to be, and the only thing is it's just a heavier battery. So over here you have your receiver, and you got your little antenna over here. The only thing I didn't have was a cover for the antenna, which I don't think that's a big deal or anything. But this is kind of water resistant a little bit, not waterproof. There is a seal on it, but I think they do that more for dirt, purposes. Speed controller, all right. This is actually not a toy speed controller. This is actually a really good one that they put on here that's made by Reddy. It has a cooling fan on top. All right, to keep the speed controller cool. When you switch it on, you have an LED light that blinks on here. Then it links up with your controller. They do make like a little bit of a beeping sound, but I don't know if it's a motor beeping sound or if it's a actual like little beep beep beep. So again, you got Velcro now that holds on your battery instead of a little cover. Look at the thickness of these wires going to the fucking motor. This is unreal. Let me bring it up close. That is unreal. You're pushing power to something when you have real thick cables like that going to it. Basic ribbon cable going to your front servo for your steering. Now everything that's on here, all right, is heavy duty. And everything that's on here has ball joints to it. Is either metal for more strength on certain parts. The only thing I noticed that they don't do with these is, your upper and lower control arms, or actually on this one here, your lower control arms, they're not metal, they're not aluminum, they're plastic. And they seem to be sturdy enough as far as what they need to work and how they need to work. But again, it's kind of maybe a little bit better if they're a little bit stronger. So what you got going on over here on your front end is, again, you have independent suspension, left and right independence, and you can remove your shocks to change them out to a better shock or a different shock if you want. These are aluminum gas shocks. Tires, you can change those out to be something else. There is a bearing in the hub for the tires. Everything has got, like, here are your camber arms to where you can tilt the tire forward or backwards, which you may have to adjust. Here are your tie rods for your steering. You may have to adjust this too. I found on mine that after I got the car stance the way I wanted, when I looked at the front tires, and one of them was just a little bit crooked, so I ended up having to adjust the tie rod side for the steering and pulling that out a little bit, so now they're both straight. The rear basically has the same thing too. It has a camber to where you can tilt the tire forward and backwards. Out of the box, that seemed to be okay, not a problem. Out of the box, it already had the wheelie bar set up on this thing. Now this thing has a Reddy motor inside here. I've been trying to find the specs of this motor, and this is not a kind of like off the shelf as they were building it type of a motor. These motors were for this car to get speed and everything. It has a real nice transmission with a slip clutch inside here, which you can adjust the slip clutch so it doesn't slip as much. which I'm going to end up probably doing once I get this thing on the road and to see what kind of a torque it has. If I'm seeing that it's not taking off the way it should take off, then I'm going to have to take the cover off of here and adjust the spring that's on that slip clutch to tighten it up a little bit so it doesn't slip as much. So yeah, I mean, it's actually pretty decent, not bad. A lot of screws on this thing if you ever wanted to take it apart. It has room for expansion. You could put a different motor in here. You could put a different slip clutch inside here. You could put a different transmission on this thing. If you ever wanted to change the speed controller, you could do that. If you ever wanted to change the receiver, everything that's on here is in the book, broken down, and has a list of part numbers. Say if you want to do upgrades, there's a list of part numbers for every part that's on here that can go with this car. That comes from company that made this. So if you're looking at different types of, like I was going through the battery chart over here to see what batteries and chargers work together and stuff, because I want to kind of keep that 11 volts. And I found that there was a battery that's actually 14 volts for this thing. But I'm looking at the MAHs as well, because I want that number to be high, so when, you know, the battery doesn't fucking suck dry really fast. But it has factory team and option parts. Then it gives you I'm going backwards in the book, a breakdown of everything that's inside this car with the part numbers as well. Again, the only thing they don't give me is the part number as far as the motor goes. And then you have your rear differential over here, which are, you know, all these parts are replaceable. Different shock springs, different shocks, your clips, oils for lubes. It tells you how to set up your slip clutch, ride height, front camber, rear camber, set up your camber links, rear camber links. I mean, it just, yeah, that's all, camber, not chamber, duh. Your body, then back here it gives you the some tips for your gear ratio and the motor that to make this thing go a lot faster. So you can mix and match, or not mix and match certain things, and be able to get the performance out of this thing. So yeah, battery is not included on this thing. Kind of a screw up of my own, but getting the wrong battery. Tires, you can get replacement tires and rims for this thing. I mean, yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be bad if it came with chrome rims, but here it gives you like breakdown of your clutch, your slip clutch, breakdown of the motor, everything that you need to know to basically tear this thing down and put it back together yourself. Everything. They didn't leave anything out of this as far as if something breaks, where do I go get the parts? If something, you know, happens to where it doesn't work anymore, you know, where can I get the electronics? So it came out really nice as far as everything you need, all in one box, and already set up, well, somewhat set up. Remember, you're going to have to tweak things here and there, just in case. Again, I went with a stiffer rear end, and it kind of stiffened up the ass end a little bit, so when I put the battery, it kind of gives me a little bit of a stance without bottoming out. When I get the new battery, I'll have the right one. I already ordered that. That'll be coming in pretty soon. I think it's like two of the same company, the Z's. Two of the same, two batteries that are identical, but they're half the thickness of this. So if I ever kill a battery, I got a backup now. Now the charger that I picked up was a pretty simple charger. It's $12, real cheap, real lightweight, but it does work, and it has some great reviews over it. When you're using a 3C or S3, all three of these will light up, because it's got to put out more power. But if you're using kind of like the one that's in my other truck, which will plug in here too, it'll only light up one cell, depending on the cells. Like this is a 3-cell battery, so it's going to light up all 3 cells. Then you have a 1-cell and you have a 2-cell. Short fucking stubby little wire. I mean, this is like a foot long. I don't know why it came with something so short. I've never seen anything like that, but this is like very cheap. But it's got some great reviews for a charger. You can go and get the more extravagant chargers, like the one that I had a timer on it, also connected to your car battery, was a big metal bulky thing for, you know, one of these batteries. But I don't have that shit anymore. Got rid of it a long time ago. Now, I've been wanting to test this thing out outside, but the weather has been like 95 fucking degrees out here. It's been hot, and it's been humid. But so going outside is kind of one of those things where if I have to, I will. If not, I'm not going anywhere. So yeah, that's basically it with this thing. I'm going to get this thing outside one of these days to zip around. This thing is too fast to be zipping around the house. I mean, if you have a house that has wood floors or tile floors or anything but carpet, depending on the size of your home, like my basement here, I can go from one end of the basement to the other end of the basement in like blink, because I've already did that. And yeah, so it's kind of useless to kind of zip this thing around your house. It needs some open space. It needs to roam. It needs to travel. It needs to run free. Did I just say that? I guess I did. Oh well. So anyways, that's it. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. And hopefully the next video I make about this car, it'll be on the road. I won't be sweating my balls off doing it. Later, everybody.